Hello and
Hello.
welcome to the fourth in our series of the reasons why we left America. This is kind of the second part to when we were saying how we felt America changed on
Yeah.
us in the second part of our residency in the US. And it also kind of ties in quite nicely with a comment that we received.
For our previous one in this series, one of our viewers put a comment up saying, "So you left because you had an opposing views to Donald Trump and didn't want him to be president."
So we felt like that we could, with the plans we already had for this video, we could address that comment
Yeah.
and incorporate the two together. So stay
Yeah.
tuned for that, please. So, as you said, this is our fourth part in the series of why we left America, but it is one of the many videos that we've made since we've decided to move back to the UK. So
That's
if
right.
you've missed and want to watch our journey, then make sure you go to our channel and start watching us from the very beginning. And while you're there, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe and all
Yes.
that business.
Not all as grim as this.
They're not all as grim as this. Yes, that's right. So just before we get into the weeds of it all,
Yes, I think we need to make something like a disclaimer saying that we're only giving you our personal thoughts, our personal insights. We're not trying to impose our views on you or say we're right and you're wrong. But we hope to explain the circumstances that led to us making the decision that we wanted to leave the United States. That's all. This isn't about politics. Politics is the influence upon it, but it is
yes,
not the main causes.
no, we just wanted to run
Does that
through
make sense? Yeah.
our experiences with the changing circumstances in America during that time and how it affected us,
Yeah.
I guess, in a more negative way,
Yeah.
and therefore may have helped us with our decision making. So, as we said, there was a comment that we were
Received in our last one of these.
And I mean, there is a simple answer to you only left America because you had opposing views to Donald Trump and you didn't want to be president. And the simple answer would be yes, we do have opposing views and we didn't want him to be president, but we have lived through presidents and politicians that we haven't agreed with.
Yeah, not just there, here,
We've done that through most of our lives. Like this is a completely different set of circumstances.
Yeah.
This isn't about Donald Trump's politics. It's more about what his presidency revealed about America or unleashed in America or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the simple answer is yes, we don't agree with him. But the larger part of this is that we could live in disagreement.
Yeah.
But living in disagreement is not as easy to do in America these days.
No. When we were preparing for this, I was reminded that when you were doing your year of teaching there alone, you were there during the George W. Bush presidency.
Didn't agree with his views.
Didn't agree with his views.
Didn't want him to be president.
It didn't really create the atmosphere that we saw later on with the next Republicans.
And infringe on our lives in the way that we're going to explain in this video.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I think the thing to really be clear on here is that what happened when Donald Trump became president was he kind of started, it kind of gave validity, I think, or I know, empowerment to the worst parts of American society.
It spoke to a lot of people who felt powerless and that the power had been taken away from them. And the power for a lot of those people had been taken away from the agency, had been taken away from them through economic hardship or because the world had just moved on. The world had changed.
Yes.
And they were hankering for a past time when their views were more accepted and...
I wouldn't say accepted. The views were more popular.
More predominant throughout society. But as time goes on, people that hold those views change their views or they die off, or these people hankered for that. And his first presidency gave them a voice. Yeah.
And we could understand why they voted for him. We didn't agree with it, but we could understand if you felt unempowered,
Yeah.
that you wanted to get some of that, you wanted your voice to be heard. We all understand that. That's the whole point of voting, isn't it?
Yeah.
However, I think when I say the most horrible traits in America, I'm talking about like the xenophobia, the racism, the misogyny. These elements existed. Donald Trump didn't create
No.
any of this.
No.
It just his presidency seemed to give them just more freedom. They were more outspoken. People that we would associate with, we didn't necessarily know that they held some of these views, and it started to make us, maybe a bit more cautious
What we said,
about
who we said things to, where we went. It made us a lot more reserved, I think.
Yeah, so it's not as if this was like these people didn't exist before. They existed,
Yeah.
but now they they became louder. They came out, they became louder, they started to be, it just started to, I guess the word is they were unapologetic
Yeah.
for their views.
Because the ability to come out and say awful things was coming down from who you should look up to, and nothing was being done to restrain or counter or expose that for, frankly, if it's hate speech, really.
Right, he wasn't being held accountable.
It wasn't being held accountable. It was just, he's just being him. But then people who had been reticent to speak their minds before or act upon awful things that they thought were right suddenly thought, well, if he can do it, we can do it.
Right. So that's what we meant by it kind of unleashed this movement in America, and it started to become normalized, didn't it? People, and it wasn't about just having a view and speaking about it. Again, we agree with free speech.
Yeah.
It was more that people were now acting on it. People were actually, with extreme views, were doing things that were really quite abhorrent. And I think that was something that may have been seen the world over.
And we don't have to go over individual events here.
No, but I mean, just
if you look it up, it's there to be seen.
Yeah, and I will mention one. I mean, Charlottesville was a big one, wasn't it? Where you had this. I mean, it was just terrible. The event itself was terrible, and then what happened within the event was also terrible, wasn't it? So it was this kind of, as I said, this rise of hatefulness. I think this rise of just people again who now saw that their behavior, their views, their opinions
was met with no accountability.
And was actually shared potentially by the people at the highest levels of government.
Because when the people who should be speaking out against that kind of behavior say, well, there's bad people on both sides, when there's quite clearly not in that particular instance.
Right. Or there's not an equivalence in the circumstances. So then there were other things as well. Again, these are probably big headlines. There was the rise of blatant, the blatant, what's the word I'm looking for? The blatant differing treatment of people who are African American or of minorities.
Well, any minority, but anybody with a different skin color was suddenly being treated differently,
and it was in the news again. Big events probably seen all around the world. George Floyd springs to mind, but there were lots of incidents, and for us, seeing these things on a national scale, I mean, that's one thing, but we're teachers, we've mentioned this before, and these things filter into students' lives. They are aware of what's going on in the news. We taught people who were of all different ethnicities. And of course, this comes into the classroom. This comes into speech around the school. There's questions that are being asked of us. There are people that may look at us with suspicion as well, because obviously we're not of those ethnic minorities ourselves. So it all did impact our lives. These things started to come in, and again, I think it added another layer of how do we speak to this? How do we say the right thing? Do we say anything?
Yeah.
What is the right thing to do?
And of course, when things like that happen, things can swing both ways to one extreme to another, which we found. And you don't really know how to behave or what to say in those particular circumstances. But we just did the best we could.
Right. And you just felt, I don't know about you, but I started to feel like, in a lot of circumstances, walking into our jobs in our everyday lives, you're kind of walking on eggshells because you're not really sure how a conversation is going to go or how it's going to turn.
Yeah.
And so you kind of play out a lot of scenarios in your mind, don't you?
Well, obviously, with us being there with our accent, we always used to get asked questions.
Yes.
But some of those questions began to become very vague, in a kind of someone testing the ground with you to see how you were going to respond.
Yeah, they're kind of weighted questions, weren't they? Yes.
Yeah.
And then another point that I felt very strongly about, I know Paul does as well, but being a female, was the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And I say this not because I agree or disagree with different opinions. It was more of, this was a situation that really distilled this this movement of people who were in the minority. The majority of America did not want this to be overturned. So you had a small minority of people who held a view, opposing views, but it doesn't matter, held a view, but also felt like it was their right to then impose that view on everybody else. And it doesn't matter that this view actually now is killing women.
Yes.
All over the country, especially in Texas.
A thing overturned by people who say they're all for the protection of life. They're going about it a very, very strange way when they're endangering the lives of people who don't want to lose their children, don't want to, but they're left with no opinion, no option.
Yes.
And it's a choice between them, their life, and going through a procedure, and they're not allowed to, and they'll die, or the surgeon doing the work is so afraid to help people
that a doctor who has taken an oath to do no harm is now not, in fear of being put in prison, is not allowed to do a procedure to save somebody's life. That must be harrowing for them as well.
But that's been enabled. And that's the worrying thing, is that the majority of the people in that country don't want that legislation overturned. But a small minority have achieved that. To what end?
Right.
Why? Some people of that who wanted that have very strong religious convictions and think it's the right thing to do. But not all of them. And not the people that have enabled it to be overturned.
Yes.
What do they want from that?
So I think what we're trying to say in this, and obviously as a woman, this is a loss of autonomy. This is a loss of, other people shouldn't have a dictate how I'm able to live my life, or how anybody, women or otherwise, the healthcare that they can receive and all of this. But it speaks to that wider thing of, like, these people who were in the minority but had this loud voice, and who had these horrible, views, whether they felt they were right or wrong, felt that they had the right to impose them on other people. And this was just one instance of that, wasn't it, with this Roe v. Wade?
The other instance of that would be everyone a majority of people in the United States want guns to be safer. They want gun control. They want people to be registered, weapons to be registered. They want people to have some kind of training in them, and they want mental health checks on people. Yet any kind of attempt to form any legislation on guns whatsoever stymies, it stops. And the number of mass shootings is increasing day by day.
So
it reaches a point where they become, over there, another shooting, and it's become, people become immune.
They become numb to
it.
And this affected us directly.
Yeah.
This is something that, again, as we progressed through these years, we started to feel more and more unsafe, because it's not just the big shootings that get into the headlines. We would wake up every single day, and in our local area, somebody else would have been shot.
Yeah.
Somebody else who disagreed with somebody would just shoot somebody, or a road rage incident. Somebody got shot just traveling on a bus.
Or someone left a gun lying around, a child picked it up and ended up shooting themselves or injuring themselves.
Or shooting their parents,
Yeah.
or whatever. And then for us in the school, I mean, we every year pretty much had to have this shooter training, active shooter training, and it just got more and more horrible because more and more shootings were taking place.
The first time we went to one of these active shooter trainings, it was about 30 minutes long. By the last one that we did at our last school together, the thing was over an hour.
2 hours.
It was over 2 hours. And it had increased because in that period of time, there'd been more and more mass shootings. And in each variance of those mass shootings, people had reacted in different ways. From when we were first there, we were told to react in different ways, and it changed from year to year because there were so many shootings that people were going through different scenarios.
But then this
But
again,
nothing's ever done about it.
but then on a larger scale, some people could argue, but really, that's the number of shootings for schools. Does it really affect you? And it does. It's not just the trauma of having to listen to all those 911 calls in our trainings. It's the fact that this is seen as people solving a problem, people who are the shooter in these circumstances usually have been trying to seek help or have been put on some kind of list, or somebody's asked and nobody has. And that then becomes into teenagers' minds. Some of them start to think, well, this is how you solve that problem, then this is how I'm going to get heard. And it happened to our school. We had, I can think of at least 4 times.
There were three major ones, and say one minor one
where we were threatened. Students at our school threatened to come in with guns. That the police were called, the FBI were called, all the way up to a point where we actually didn't go to one of the graduations one year because somebody who had not graduated and not got the grades to graduate, he threatened to shoot up the graduation. Like, this is supposed to be a celebration.
Yeah.
And, it turned into a really terrifying moment for us. Like, we're called in to our school the morning before the graduation ceremony, and we're being told that the FBI, that they were up all night, the management with the FBI talking through getting, reaching out to the lad who made the threats, and that it's fine. There's going to be plainclothes police officers at the event. It was really, really scary.
Do you want that? Do you want to put yourself in that particular position? It might have been very safe, but then again, he might have had friends who were prepared to act on his behalf.
And we
didn't know, so we didn't go, did we?
But that was kind of just, I guess, one of the height of how that sort of culture of just our guns the answer to everything, how that really did impinge on our life. And then I guess another one, and this is kind of a big one for both of us, because we're teachers, we deal with information, we're trying to pass on and educate people. And it was this rise of misinformation and conspiracy theories. Again, we're not saying that these didn't exist before Donald Trump came into his presidency, but these were all, massively multiplied during that time, because, again, he was perpetuating some of this misinformation, as were his staff. They were the ones who came up with this term alternative facts. But for somebody who's a scientist, like, a fact is a fact. There isn't much wiggle room around that. You can have theories, and you need to then prove that if your theory is right or not. But, there is no sort of grey area in a lot of these things. From a historical perspective, you can't just go back and redo things.
Not so much in the first time around, but because of the people that have been empowered and enabled, you got more scrutiny on what you were teaching in the curriculum, and there were groups who wanted to know everything about that you were teaching. And when you see what's happened in the meantime with the Smithsonian Institution being gutted.
We're going to talk about that in the next episode.
Then
Let's
yeah. Okay.
Anyway, I think what we're trying to say here, or what I know I'm trying to say anyway, is that this misinformation wasn't just, random weirdo down the corner having a moment, was it? This misinformation, these conspiracy theories, were then being used to make decisions that affected us directly.
Yeah.
And that's the issue, isn't it? It's like, I don't, if you don't want to believe in the Big Bang, as just an example, I mean, that's fine. That's up to you. I mean, it is a fact. But the point is that you having that and just sitting in your house, no harm done. But what we're talking about, and this kind of was then kind of exploded during COVID, was that the misinformation, the wrong use of science, not even believing, or science isn't a belief system, I'll get onto that, different thing, but not even following science was actually affecting people's lives. I mean, people were dying. Let's just face it. People were dying. People have died because of this. But again, we're going to talk about our personal circumstances. And this is obviously, as teachers, initially we went into lockdown.
Yeah. We did 2 months of 2 months of remote, and then we went back and did hybrid.
But then once we started, or once there was talks of how could we get schools to go back again, I mean, there was a lot of fear. I will say that very personally, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I have asthma. So I was in quite a big, serious category and of, worrying about the effects of COVID. And I think that it really wasn't fully explained to me. I don't feel I was really taken seriously. I don't think that with some of our administration's decisions that they really looked out for us.
A lot of it was decisions made without the full context or the full knowledge of the disease at the time. And it could only go off what information we had. So some decisions like wearing the masks, that was just what we had to do at the time. We didn't know. We did it because we didn't know. It couldn't hurt not to do it.
That's it. So you have to put yourself back. Like, this is, in hindsight, it's all a very different situation, isn't it? But at the time, you didn't know how bad this was. You just saw people dying around you all the time, didn't you? And we didn't have a vaccine. We didn't have anything else. So you had people where we were living who didn't think that they needed to wear a mask. Like, they thought that they could make a personal choice because that was, something that's in the Constitution. But really, that personal decision didn't just affect them. It affected everybody else around them. I was, obviously compromised with my asthma. We had friends who were highly immunocompromised with, specific medical conditions, and they couldn't even leave the house because they couldn't trust, people to wear a mask if they went to the supermarket.
Never mind getting an inoculation when they become available,
or go back to their workplace. We had people who disagreed with our school policies. We had teachers who were fired, to be honest with you, weren't they?
Yes, that's true.
Because they refused to wear a mask. We had some students who would refuse to wear a mask. And we're walking into that situation every day. I mean, we're not even joking here. We would go to school. We would stay very separate from everybody. We would have to clean everything in between all classes. We would come home and essentially go through a whole decontamination process.
Because we weren't sure at the time how long it would survive airborne. We'd just strip in the garage with the door closed and rush through, jump in the shower and, put the clothes straight into the wash. And
the thing is that initially it seemed like a lot of the public were with us as teachers, that, we all need to be safe. That didn't last very long, did it?
Well, it was when the children had been stuck at home with them for a while, they realised that sending them to school got them a bit of relief.
So it felt like there was a lot of pressure and to get students back into school. And we're not saying that students shouldn't be in school, but it just seemed to be that the safety and the well-being of teachers was like really down in the pegging, in the order there. To try and get this done, because again, you had a very minority vocal group who held these views and imposed those views onto other people.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to say, hopefully you've taken from all of this, is that it wasn't just one thing. It was this slow, gradual change. It sounds slow, but it was over like a 4 or 5, 6 year period, really. Yeah. And it was all of these things: the misogyny, the racism, the hatefulness, all of the misinformation, the rising violence. All of this turned America into this country that we didn't recognize anymore.
Yeah.
That maybe we had gone in and moved in 2010 based on previous experiences of America, or thoughts, or even maybe movie propaganda or whatever it was. But that hopefulness that we had initially, the work after we worked really hard and got our house together and got our home and all of this, all of that really, just gone, wasn't it? There wasn't a lot of hope. So like I said, it wasn't overnight, but it happened, and it happened quite loudly. And then we just kind of woke up one day and thought, why are we putting ourselves through this? Like, why are we doing this? I think that's when we realized it's time to make a decision, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of politics. It's because we wanted to get our sanity back and our peace and our safety.
Yeah. So it's not, this video isn't a video about us hating on America, because there's so many things about the place that were so good for us. But it's more about seeing clearly for the first time since we've come back to how we undertook the hardest choices that we've had to make.
Right, yeah. And maybe seeing America for really what it is now, rather than what we wanted it to be.
So addressing the comment that we got on our previous video, it's obviously it's a lot more than just because Trump became president. There's a lot more attached to that. That was just like the falling domino.
Yeah, that was
first
the
domino.
Instigation of it. Yeah. It was more about how now the people with the horrible views and the hatred and the ignorance, they had a platform.
Yeah.
And how that impinged on our everyday lives, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the answer. That's the long answer to the question. It's not.
It's only taken us best part of half an hour to answer that question.
Well, just like if it was just like President Bush, we'd still be in America.
Trump. Oh yeah, if it was President Bush, we'd still be there. Yeah. Because there
it didn't rise to this level.
The extremities were not exposed or came to the fore. People still had some sense and decorum, and politics did not.
It wasn't this divisive.
Yeah, divisive.
So anyway, we've got one more video that we're going to do in this series, and that is kind of
done.
Now you understand. We've made the decision. We are going to leave America, and we're going to then talk about in the last video. Then we knew we were going to leave America. We still weren't quite 100% sure we were going to go back to the UK. So what led up to the decision to actually return to the UK?
Yeah.
And how has us now being back here and seeing what's happening now
over there,
how has that it's reinforced our decision, really, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That we did the right thing.
Yeah. Well, we'll go into that in greater detail.
Yeah. So just one more time, we're not trying to influence you. If you are entitled to your views, you're entitled to your opinions.
Well,
we're just sharing our experience. And
express yourself in the comments, as ever.
You'll continue to watch us as we finish this series off. In the meantime, please look at our other videos, like and subscribe.
They're not all this grim,
No. We do have some fun ones.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time around.
Take care and bye
Cheers
for now.
for now.
Bye.
Bye.